friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Thank you so much for joining me today. I decided that I've had enough making Christmas cards. I feel like I've been doing it since July, and I have had these two stamp sets from Maker Forte in my stash. This one is a Varada Sharma stamp that is called Grateful to You. I love that it's got all the sentiments with secondary sentiments, so I can layer my sentiments if I want to, but that floral is a stunner. I mean, she put berries in it, it's gorgeous. Then I have this background stamp. This is an Syberia design stamp. This one is a floral background with sentiments, and you can see the sentiments. It's a combination of fonts. There's lots of little tiny ones I can add there. Like, I love that there's a sentiment for thank you. There's a birthday sentiment. There's just a wishing you a beautiful day sentiment. I love the sentiments in both of these sets. And again, I love a big background stamp because you can do so much with it. So I want to play with a couple of my favorite techniques that I haven't done in a while. And I just want to relax and make a couple of pretty cards. That's all I want to do. So I loved the way this Grateful to You stamp looked on the Slimline background. Like, to me, this was perfectly packaged to say, this would make a beautiful Slimline card, Kim. So that's what I'm doing. And I do love florals. I mean, do I need more floral stamps? I do not, because I've got shelves full of them, but I love them. And I love the berries in this one. And there's a variety of different flowers and leaves. So of course I'm going to make this. Yes, this jumped right into my cart. I didn't even have to click it. So I am pulling out the Maker Forte Color Hive black ink. It's just my go-to ink now, but I definitely am watercoloring on this one. And there you saw me conditioning my stamp, and on the outline stamps, I still use my polymer eraser, my high polymer eraser. On larger stamps, I will use larger solid stamps. I will actually use the conditioning spray that Maker Forte has. Like, that Primetime stamp conditioner spray is beautiful for those big solid stamps. But I am going to, even though I want to watercolor, I am actually stamping in the black ink because I don't love doing no line coloring watercolor or marker techniques, because I have so much trouble seeing the very light inks. So I like to have a nice bold color like black on my images when I'm going to watercolor. I need to be able to see them. I just struggle to see the really light inks, and I don't enjoy doing that. So I'm going with a nice bold one. But this is dye ink. That black ink is dye ink, and you cannot watercolor with it because the water, it will react with the ink and it'll just smudge. So I did a layer of the clear ink over the top. I added some clear embossing powder, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set that just to, that will set the, or actually sort of encapsulate that black ink. So I'll still get my nice black background, but now I can watercolor. So this is how you watercolor with the Maker Forte ink. And I'm just like using a nice thin flat brush that I have to remove some excess powder, and I'm just heat setting now. So this is actually going to give me a nice bright black image, and I'm super excited about it. Plus I can do my fast watercolor technique that's stress-free in my opinion, and get the color put on there pretty quickly. I'm just going to put my Misty on top just to weight it down and flatten it out a little bit while I pull out my ink. So I'm pulling out my bag of, this is a Totally Tiffany storage piece, by the way, and this is not my permanent ink storage. I just haven't found a good ink storage solution for these particular ink pads yet. And I got some new inks, and oh my gosh, the December colors are so gorgeous. That was tartan teal with the blue raspberry and the neon blue. I haven't opened the Welsh Dragon yet, but I'm going to, and I'm going to open the British Racing Green. And you can see I was doing a video on these ink pads last night, and I wanted to just see a couple of the new colors. They're so pretty. And you can see I'm pulling out the colors I like, and then I end up pulling out practically everything. And you can see this is not an optimal storage plan for my inks, because I store my blending foams on the bottom, and when you stack them, they get really messy, but they clean up beautifully with that wonderful cleaning spray, that Squid Buddy cleaning spray. Like, I really like that stuff. It really does clean up these inks beautifully. So I'm pulling out just a piece of scrap paper, and I'm pulling out I have a set of 3 of these Maker Forte water brushes, and I actually like them. Pretty much water brushes are almost the same everywhere. There's one brand that's super hard to fill, but these aren't that brand. So I like these brushes. So I'm taking some of the bubblegum ink and some of the coral keys. I squish them onto my mat and spritz them with water. I love that Mr. Perfect PhD bottle, that 8-ounce bottle. I do a lot of watercoloring, and a lot of techniques that I use water. And if you don't have water on the same floor as your craft room, that 8-ounce bottle is pretty fantastic. So I'm just adding some water to the flower. Now, I did use this is pre-cut paper that I got from Maker Forte, and it's 4 by 8.5. And it's 110-pound paper. So I feel pretty confident that I can watercolor on this. I've done it before because it's such a heavyweight paper, and I'm not using a ton of water. I'm using more than I would on regular cardstock, like 65-pound or 80-pound. And I'm pretty confident that it's not going to warp my paper too badly. And if it does, I'll send it through my laminator to dry and flatten it out. But in the end, I can just put a little bit of double-sided sticky tape on the back, and it works out just fine. So you can see I took that, I'm taking the ink, just picking it up and dropping it in randomly really fast. I'm just like scribbling it around the place. And then I'm taking the lighter ink and adding that in some places. And if I decide I need more darker spots, I'll use the coral keys, and the lighter spots are getting the bubblegum. Love the bubblegum color. Love it. Like, these are ink colors I don't think you can get anywhere else. I mean, crazy names aside, these are amazing, amazing inks. I keep wanting to call Everglades ink evergreen ink, and I just love the colors. Isn't it pretty? Look how quick I did that. Like, that was pretty quickly done. And I left some white spaces in there, and I left some super light bubble gum in there because I just want there to be variation in color. And I don't care where the light source is. I just want to have a relaxing morning doing a little bit of watercolor painting, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm doing it very quickly. So I'm trying out the British Racing Green, and I like this color. This is, again, a different green that I have in the other 3 ink lines that I have. Like, I did a video a long time ago about my 3 favorite inks, which include Catherine Pooler inks, love the foam pads and bright colors. Altenew inks, love the fact that they come in sets of 4 that layer together, and Distress Oxide inks, just because I love the chalky look and all the techniques you can do with them. So, for a long time I've just stuck to those 3 kinds of inks, and now I've discovered Color Hive inks. I should never have purchased even one of these, because now I want all the colors that they come out with, because the colors are different than any of the other things I have in my stash. So I'm excited about it. So I believe this is blue raspberry. Squish it on, give it a squirt of water. The more water you add, the lighter your ink will be. So you decide, like if you don't have two blues you want to use, see what I just did there? I squirted more water on and just took a little bit of that ink and mixed it in the extra water. So now I have a lighter blue raspberry and a darker blue raspberry, so I can do a lighter side and a darker side. I wanted the darker side a little darker, so I went in with some more of the darker, less watered down ink. So now I have a difference in color on the two sides of the blueberries. And now I did actually go outside the line of on the one side here, and I'm just using a clean brush with some water to try to lighten that. And you can keep going back and forth. You want to be, do it in stages if you're trying to remove ink, because water will remove it, but do it just a little at a time, let it dry in between, and you can get rid of that. I'm not too worried about it. I lightened it enough that I'm going to do a watercolor wash around the edge anyway. So I pulled out the Yellowstone ink, and I'm just doing a light yellow, and I watered this down quite a bit because this is a nice vibrant yellow, and I'm just doing those other flowers. The inside of the flowers is really pretty. So I definitely decided I wanted some kind of red. So I pulled out the Tip Tree Jam, and I'm giving that a little squirt. And I'm going to be sloppy about it, and I'm going to let it mix with some of that yellow and try to get a little bit of, hopefully get a little bit of orange. And I think I'm going to add a little bit more of the yellow to actually make that blend a little better with that tip tree that I just added. So I get a little bit of orange along the outside of the center of that flower, and then yellow on the edges. Like I just really just want to get a little bit of variation in color. That's always my goal when I watercolor. Like there are projects where I do fussy watercoloring, where I'm careful about where I'm putting the dark ink and the light ink. This isn't one of them. I just want to make a pretty card, and you know what? You can make a pretty card with watercoloring with your inks pretty quickly. You don't have to be fussy about it. Just have fun with it. Like, see what you can get away with watercolors. Like, have you ever watched Debbie Hughes watercolor? She is amazing from Lime Doodle Designs. I aspire to be like Debbie Hughes. In fact, I'm going to add a bunch of splatter to this after it dries, just because that's what Debbie Hughes does, and I love the way her cards look. That splatter she adds is amazing. So I'm working on my technique. And if you want to do splatter but you aren't quite brave enough to actually flick that paintbrush full of ink, then Maker Forte has 4 different designs for splatter stamps. So definitely get yourself 1 or 2 of those, or all 4, and allow yourself to add some splatter in at least a controlled way. But the splatter is pretty fun, actually. The more I splatter, the more I like it. And there's a fine line between enough splatter and too much splatter. And sometimes I achieve it, sometimes I don't. I'm okay with that. Like, it's all about experimenting. So I did add a little bit of yellow to those larger leaves, just so they looked a little bit different. And again, I'm pulling out a blue, this time the neon lights. Now, I added a lot of water to that. I want a light watercolor wash around the outside and in between the flowers where there isn't any watercolor. And I always have a rag handy to blot up if I put too much water down or too much paint down. Now this looks really light, and I will go back over the super light parts and add more as it dries. I just want to get a fast wash around the outside. I really like the way watercolor washes look. Like, it looks really pretty with a light gray, with a light green, with a light yellow, or with a light blue. If I hadn't used pink on the flowers, that bubble gum would be beautiful. So, just pick a color that you like, or maybe you want to pull out more of that color from something you used in the image that you're coloring in, have fun with it. Experiment with your colors. Like, here's one more thing you can do with your ink pads, so you don't have to feel guilty about buying all the colors, because you might need them to watercolor with. Plus, if you get the re-inker, which you should, get the re-inker when you buy them, especially foam pads, because they need to be re-inked more than felt pads. Even felt pads need to be re-inked every few months if you use them all the time. I use my ink pads every day, and I'm still using, even though I've fallen in love with these new Maker Forte inks, I'm still using all my other, like my Catherine Pooler, my Altenew, and my Distress Oxide. I'll never stop using them. And now I will probably never stop using these. The colors are just so fantastic. I mean, the December color combination, wowzers. That was amazing. So I put that aside. You saw me pull out a board. I put it aside. I'm cleaning up my workspace. I'm moving on to the second card while that card dries. So I pulled out the background stamp, this floral background stamp, and I love this one. And I tried a couple times to stamp this with black ink, and I wasn't having a lot of success. My black ink needs to be re-inked before I try that again. So I am going to be using just my clear ink and some white embossing powder. Now, my card base there is actually 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and the stamp was not that wide. I thought it was going to be 6 by 6, but it's not quite 6 by 6. It was wider than it was taller. And I apologize, I got interrupted so many times when I was making this video. I'm pretty sure my husband just walked in at this moment. So I inked it in clear ink, used white embossing powder and heat set it, and then I just started adding ink. And I started with either Yellowstone or English mustard. And then I added some coral keys and some of the I'm not sure which blue that is, neon blue, I think. And I just finished it off, and I'm trying to decide what, I just got some new embellishments, and I thought maybe I'll try those, but no, that piece needs the blue crown jewel gems that I have. I have 2 different ones, the Vegas strip and the Scottish thistle. It will get one of those. So I splattered some black ink on, and I always clean off my mat in between because too many times I've smeared it. And it's a nice dry day here, so that black splatter dried pretty quickly. I always let my black splatter dry before I put on my white, or they can blend together and give you gray spots that don't look that nice. And I like a lot of white splatter because, again, I aspire to be Debbie Hughes. So I'm adding some white splatter, and now I want to add some gold just because I feel like this needs some sparkle and some metallic. And so I'm mixing this up. I haven't used it in a while, maybe 6 months. Absolutely 6 months. So I'm really mixing that up really well. And, I just pull out the spray wand because spraying it gives you a fine mist. It doesn't give me splatter. And I think my white one's clogged anyway. So I put some of that on. I put it aside to dry. And it's nice and flat. I put some double-sided sticky tape and stuck it to a card base, which is cut at 8 by 8 1/2, and I just folded it in half. And then I just stamped one of the sentiments from the background stamp, and I'm adding it to this piece. And my mother's going to get this for her birthday next month. I can say that because she doesn't watch my videos. She watches my husband's fishing videos instead of watching my card making videos. So how's that for loyalty? But she's going to get this card. And she'll never know until she opens it up. So, however, when she gets this card in the mail from me, she will hang it on her refrigerator. And I love that my mother still hangs my art on the refrigerator. No matter how old you get, it still feels good when your mom puts it on the refrigerator. So I have stuff that my daughter makes me hanging on the refrigerator, and she's 29. So just because I know how much I love having my stuff on my mother's refrigerator. So there I'm adding some of the blue crown jewel gems. Not sure which ones these are. I think they're the Scottish Thistle because it's a little fuller than the Vegas Strip, which was my very first crown jewel gem ever. I love the crown jewel gems. You can see I put a bunch on this. It's a big card, so it's a tall card, so I really wanted to make sure I had plenty. And don't you love these on-hook tweezers and the magic wand here? I love that jewel picker and those tweezers. To me, I'm never going to be using anything but those tweezers. So I did try some pearls on here. I didn't like the way they looked as much as the crown jewel gems, so I just pulled them off, and the glue just peeled off the embossing. So I'm gonna just add some crown jewel gems, and a little adhesive eraser will take any glue off that you have. So that's a really good tool to have. And I'm going to put a few of these on. I think the dark blue looks really nice on here. You can see I added that's a white heat embossed sentiment on navy blue, and I added a navy blue mat and put a white card base so that it peeks around. And the beauty of background stamps is you can do a ton of different techniques with them and add a simple sentiment, and you've got a beautiful card. Like, that's a pretty card. The colors, aren't those colors beautiful? Like, I didn't use green or orange, but ink blending it together, I got a rainbow of colors because I used a red, a yellow, and a blue. So there are my two cards. I'll put all the links to everything below. Thank you so much for watching, friends. I would love it if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed. And if you just click those links just to browse the store, you don't even have to buy anything. That helps me out a lot. So thank you so much for watching, friends. Have a wonderful day.